Yeah, I mean, I think definitely it's going to take a little while, but the reason that I and other infectious disease doctors have been really thinking about taking off the outdoor masks first is because, in a way, outdoor masks were the least of our public health interventions that made sense. Really, if we think about the three COVID-19 interventions, they're masking, distancing, and ventilation, and nothing is as good as it gets in terms of ventilation as being outside.
So I think this is interesting and also doubly interesting because back in April of 2020, you co-authored one of the first papers that called for universal masking. And so I'm curious what you've seen that is now changing your mind.
Yes. So masking right now in the indoor setting is still going to be indicated until anyone who wants to get a shot can get a shot in the United States. But there's sort of a lot of accumulating data about how low the risk is outside. For example, there was a study in Wuhan, China, that looked at 7,324 infections, really careful contact tracing, and only one was connected to the outside. There was another study, Ireland, just a couple of weeks ago, over 232,000 infections in the country, and again, careful contact tracing, 1 in 1,000 at that were traced to outside transmission. And then lots of other data, University of Canterbury meta-analysis, a UCSF meta-analysis that shows that the risk of outdoor transmission, just because you have that advantage of literally ventilation of the particles of the virus being dispersed in the air, is so low that in fact the University of Canterbury scoping review said we should actually be encouraging people to be outside, not with masks. And so actually the WHO never recommended masks outside when they put together their December 2020 guidelines, unless you were in packed spaces like a rally, really close to each other, yelling. That's where we would recommend masks outside.
So this is really important because all along the mantra has been, and I think it still should be, which is follow the science. And what I'm hearing you say is that the science is following us to a place of this isn't following the science anymore. Because it's more nuanced than that.
It's just more nuanced. And what you said is really key about this question of nuance, right? Because there has been a complicated relationship with masking in the United States. There just has. I have personally gotten many letters when I wrote about, for example, double masking and the advantages of that indoors. And so when you have a complicated public health intervention, you want to follow the data sort of to a T. And just like we've all seen, March 2020, we had to shut everything down. We didn't even want to touch surfaces. We were cleaning our groceries. Things happened because we didn't have enough data. We realized that surface transmission is not a thing and we shouldn't be disinfecting to this degree. We realized that masks were important. We didn't say that at the beginning, but with a lot of accumulating data, we realized they were important. And now the science is telling us outside that this is just a virus that cannot spread outside readily. And that means even if we want to follow the science, regardless of our vaccination status, we could already be lifting outdoor mask mandates. So we also kind of, do this a lot. We sometimes have to change.
Well, and I'm kind of, what I'm wondering is, if you look at kind of how well or not well America's done in terms of following public health guidelines through this pandemic compared to other countries, is it just we can't really handle nuance?
See, I push back on that question of us not handling nuance. And this could be because I'm an HIV doctor, and we always say, if this, then that. If two people are positive together, then do this. If you're one negative and one positive, do this. So I think that has been a public health question, that maybe we can't follow the guidelines if we put in more nuanced, tiered messaging. If you're vaccinated together, you don't have to wear a mask. If you're vaccinated and unvaccinated, do this. But I actually think that doesn't give the American public credit enough. And this is pretty simple. Carry a mask with you all the time. Absolutely. You have to go inside, grab that mask, put that back on. But it's pretty simple. People know when they're outside to say that when you're outside, that's when it's not necessary unless you're in packed circumstances. And then inside, grab it and put it on. So I want to give credit to the American people and say we can do this.
It also, for me, it's like hope on the horizon. We are moving out of this. You can do some more normal things, especially if you get vaccinated. And here's an example of it. Doctor, fascinating stuff. Thank you for coming on.